All right, welcome to this training module talking all about risk management and commercial insurance. I'm your instructor, James Jenkins. I'm the CEO and founder of RiskWell. We are a risk management and insurance firm located in McKinney, Texas, and serving clients in about 35 states. It is a real privilege to talk to you at this point early in your entrepreneurial journey from one founder to another. This is an incredible thing that you get to do, and I'm very honored to be a very small part of helping you do it. Here's what you can expect in this video. We're going to jump right into talking about risk management topics. There are 12 areas of threats or hazards that you need to be aware of before we even start talking about an insurance product. Far too often, people that are in startup mode, that are getting their feet wet in the world of risk management and insurance, jump straight into talking about product. Hey, I need a quote for business insurance. And we really want to take a look at the risk management topics surrounding the whole conversation, because as we'll get into here in just a moment, insurance is part of the risk management process. It is the fourth out of 5 steps. And when you jump straight into going out and buying a policy, or hey, so-and-so, can I get a quote? What you're really doing is jumping the gun and getting out in front of your skis. So in this video, we're going to talk about how to start the process and how to set yourself up for success before you even start trying to buy an insurance product, so that you can be properly protected in your business, not just going out and buying an insurance product and then calling it a day. So after we go into the 12 areas of the threats we want you to be aware of, we're then going to talk about how to pick the right agent or representative, because it's very important that you start with the person who's going to be advising you, who's going to be serving as your risk and insurance expert on your team of advisors. As you go through this process of building and launching and scaling a business, you're going to have to lean on a team of advisors. Your business attorney, your CPA, your banker, your financial advisor, someone who is helping you, follow the laws of employment and HR-related regulations. You need to have someone on your team who is handling matters of risk and insurance. Think of them in the very same way that you would think of any other white-collar advisor. Too often people think of insurance as a product that you buy rather than an ongoing relationship that your business has with risk. And when you're hiring the right advisor, they are going to be making sure that you are properly protected and that you have your blind spots minimized as much as possible. So let's go ahead and jump right in to our content here in the video. I'm just going to put out these threats areas here and discuss them a little bit each one, so we can understand what they are, how they interact with your business, and what you can do about them. Because for each one of these 12 threats, there are certain things that you can do of an operational nature, that you can plan for them. You can set up policies and procedures and training for you and for your team to minimize the impact of these threats. Sometimes the best thing to do is just be aware of them and buy an insurance product to minimize and transfer that risk to a third party. So we're just going to jump right in here, and on screen they'll slide over and show you some of the details of what we're working with here. The first one is operational threats. And these are threats that are related to the operating of your business, the daily mundane grind of whatever it is that your business is doing. If you are in a skilled trade of some sort, this is visiting clients, this is traveling on the road, this is the daily practicing of your business. If you're more of an advisory in a white collar based business where your product is advice, a lot of times operational threats are simply going to come up through the work that you're doing, through the advice that you give, and then the advice itself creates liability, it creates obligation with your clients, with your stakeholders. So operational threats are really important to be aware of. And just as a point of order, I'm perfectly happy to provide you a copy of this threats document. We have created a 2-page summary of all of these things. I'd be happy to send it to you. You can reach out to me at james@riskwell.com for any sort of follow-up to this educational content. Feel free to reach out with questions. My team and I are happy to assist you, even if it doesn't mean you're doing business with us. If it's a question of, hey, can you send me a copy of that thing you referenced? Perfectly happy to do that. There's no strings attached. We don't expect you to do business with us for us to help you with routine questions and whatnot. The second area is technological, and this is anything involving a piece of technology, whether it is a software system, something in the cloud, some thing sitting on your desk, a computer, or audio video equipment, or whatever. There are lots of threats involved with the use of technology. One of them in this day and age is the threat of cyber liability and data breach, of a bad actor getting access to your sensitive information, proprietary data about your company, your protected customer data. We have to be mindful of the exposures of technology in our businesses and take steps to mitigate those risks. Sometimes that's as simple as hiring a third-party IT, a managed services provider, or a security contractor to help you with setting up a firewall, to help you with making sure that all of your antiviruses and system patches are up to date, that there's active monitoring of your system, that there's some sort of threat detection going on, so that if there is an intruder, if there is a social engineering or fraudulent transfer kind of attack where someone on your team is tricked into doing something they shouldn't have done, that there's a plan in place and that you have regular backups going on so that your system is able to be recovered with minimal hassle. And if you're ever in a ransomware kind of situation where someone comes in and holds your system hostage and says, I'm going to keep you from accessing things unless you pay me $50,000 in Bitcoin or whatever. If you have planned ahead of time for the technological threats to your business, then you're going to be much better able to weather the storm and move on. Next is social. Social threats are people-based. People are unpredictable wild animals half the time. We don't always know what the people in our circle are going to do, whether that's business partners, whether that's employees or team members, whether it's contractors, whether it's channel partners, people outside of your business. Being aware of the social threats to your business means you're going to be better able to prepare against them. Next is legal. There's a lot of legal threats involved in running your business. We definitely think that one of the most important hires that you can make for your advisory team is that of a competent business attorney who is familiar with your industry, who's familiar with the sort of work that you do, and is able to make suggestions to minimize and transfer the contractual obligations, the legal obligations that you have. As we'll see here right after this, as we talk about contractual threats. Legal threats are kind of sticky, and I might sound like an attorney half the time, but I am not an attorney. I'm not qualified to give legal advice. Strongly recommend that you engage with a great attorney. They can be one of the most important advisors that you have in your business. Next is contractual threats. When you sign a contract, whether it's with an employee or a vendor or any kind of third party that you're doing business with, you have certain obligations, which means you have certain threats that could present a problem for your business if things go sideways. If someone fails to comply with their obligations, if you fail to comply with your obligations and find yourself on the punitive end of a contract, you need to be aware of the contractual threats that your business faces. Next is physical. There's a lot of physical threats out there. Namely, this is going to be things to do with your business, with your physical location, with motor vehicles and tools and equipment that you may interact with in the course of running your business. If you're aware of the physical threats and you are putting plans in place to minimize the impact of those threats to your business, things like driver safety programs and active driver screening. If you have any kind of vehicles in your business at all, you want to make sure that you have some sort of safety program and telematics, that you're able to see what people are doing with your vehicles. If you have tools and equipment in your business, that there's some sort of check-in, check-out system, that you know who has what, that things are happening the way that they're supposed to be, that people have been properly trained in the use of the tools and equipment. And for your business itself, things like, do you have a critical weather event plan? Do you have an active shooter plan for your office location? In the event of a serious emergency, Do you have an emergency action plan? Does your team know what to do if you are incapacitated, if you fall sick with a disease or illness or injury, if you're involved in a major car accident, you're incapacitated? Does your team know what to do? Next is innovational threats. Innovation is something that all of us are looking to do. We're trying to become better than we were before. We're trying to find that next big idea that catapults us forward in our industry and makes us more dangerous to the competition. Innovational threats come in because we don't really know what other people are doing out there. Someone may come up with an idea that makes your product obsolete. Someone may enter your space that challenges your whole way of doing business, that forces you to innovate in ways that you're not comfortable with. Innovational threats is some of the most squishy and most difficult to quantify, but if you're aware of the importance of regular innovation, and if you're going back and asking yourself, how can we make this better? Then you're going to be better positioned to not be caught off guard when something else happens in your industry. We only have 5 left here. Financial threats. It's the simple cash flow, you know? Do you have the financial knowledge necessary to run your business? Are you able to dig into financial statements, balance sheets, income statements, expense statements, profit and loss, etc.? Do you understand where the money is going in your business? Do you understand cash flow management and capital management? Do you have the wherewithal to make the decisions necessary so that you're not finding yourself in a situation where you're running out of capital and you don't have access to capital because you didn't plan ahead? Financial threats are definitely one of the most scary and existential things that we deal with. Next is environmental threats. For most of us, this means dealing with the weather. It's very unpredictable. Where I'm located here in North Texas, severe weather is a very real thing. We have hailstorms and tornadoes that might pop up literally any month of the year. So environmental threats for most of us just means being aware of the weather and environmental concerns and having an emergency action plan in place so that your business is prepared for severe weather events. Now, if you're a business that's working with any kind of environmentally active things, any kind of chemicals or products that may be controlled in some form or fashion, a lot of the contractors that we work with here at RiskWell are using some sort of material that may be considered dangerous to the environment, whether it's a roofer or a general contractor or a landscaper or a plumber or an HVAC technician. There's a lot of businesses out there that deal with controlled substances, and the environmental impact and fines and penalties thereof may be significant. So keeping an eye on environmental threats in your business is very important. Regulatory threats. You know, the state of Texas, whatever state that you are in watching this video, the powers that be have a regulatory framework in your state that governs the very nature of our business, how we interact with our team members, how we interact with downstream participants, whether it's subcontractors or vendors or channel partners or customers. There's a lot of expectations on how we are running our business, and we have to be mindful of those regulatory concerns when we operate. A lot of these things are HR related, they are comptroller related as far as, you know, doing things the right way, registering things the right way, letting the state know what you're up to, and making sure that your business activities conform to accepted guidelines for your industry. The last two are a little bit more squishy and somewhat hard to quantify. Internal threats are going to be a big thing where unhappy team members do things on their own, or just team members in general don't follow procedure like they're supposed to, whether that is a social media guideline, whether that is workplace violence or substance abuse or things of that nature. When team members act up, we have to be mindful of those potential threats and have systems in place to minimize and transfer the impact of those negative actions. And the last one is moral threats. Very simply, it is the possibility that people do things that they should not do, whether this is an intentional criminal act or it is simply a lapse in judgment where someone has a moral compromise of some kind that they really shouldn't have. When you're ready for the possibility that your people are going to do things that they shouldn't do, perhaps your business partner doing things that they should not do, then you're going to be much better prepared for those threats, and you'll be able to minimize and transfer the impact of those threats in your business. And that's it for the 12 threats that you need to be mindful of as we go through this conversation of risk management and insurance. Let's transition now into the important factors as far as picking your representation. And let me start with some philosophy shift here, because the entire marketplace has trained just about everybody out there that when you think about insurance, you should be thinking about, can I get a quote? Can you save me some money? And I really want to caution you against that line of thinking, because yes, of course, getting a competitive price for your insurance program is very important, especially in this phase of your business existence. You're in a startup mode. You are in, I need to run as lean as possible so I can get this airplane off of the runway and get it up in the air and get it flying so we can start doing what we need to do. Obviously, it's very important to be doing it in a cost competitive way. But before we ever get to that point in picking your agent or representative, it's so important that we nail down the critical factors. And I've boiled this down into what I call the 4 E's of picking the right agency, the right representative. Because as we'll talk about here in just a moment, getting in and picking the right agent, the right person first, makes picking the right insurance program much, much easier. Because last time I checked, you watching this video, you're not an expert in commercial insurance. And when you go out to the marketplace and say, can I get a quote? What you're doing is, in fact, putting the pressure on you to make the right decision. Because if you do what most people do, you're going to go out and get several quotes from several different agents. You're going to put them down. You're going to compare them side by side, and you're going to make the best choice that you know how to make. Unfortunately, for most people, that means that you're going to pretend like you're an insurance expert and that you can really go line by line and compare and contrast different insurance policy options and make the right decision. That's not in any way based on price. Most people don't have the ability to do that. They haven't put the time and effort into understanding the insurance world, and I'm not saying you should do that. I'm saying you should probably pick the right agent, the right expert that meets the criteria that you think is very important, and then let that person manage the process for you. I said person, not people. There's a real problem that comes in with commercial insurance when you have more than one agent attacking the marketplace at the same time. Commercial insurance is a little bit different than some other industries because every company out there, Travelers, Liberty Mutual, Chubb, The Hartford, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, every single one of those companies will only work with one agent at a time. So whoever gets to them first is going to have the rights to represent that company to you, to your business. What happens when you are working with more than one agent at a time, you create conflict in the marketplace where it's entirely possible that the best agent is not going to be able to access the best company because you have created the wrong kind of competition. You are thinking that you want to create competition between agents. Most of the people that we talk to have the mindset of when it comes time to pick your business insurance, that it's a good idea to talk to multiple agents and get multiple quotes and create competition so you get the best price. But here's the problem with that. The agent doesn't set the price. The agent is not responsible for making sure that you get exactly what you need to get. That's the underwriter at the carrier who sets the price. The underwriter sets the terms and conditions. And when you have multiple agents out there in the marketplace bumping into each other, what you're telling the underwriters is, I don't have a representative. I am just playing shotgun and hoping for the best. And that is a great way to get your submission, your request for insurance, moved to the bottom of the stack. What happens when you have a single representative that you've picked using some of these characteristics that I think are really important? You have your representative going to the marketplace and being your voice, telling your story, letting these underwriters understand where you are coming from and the sort of loss controls, the sort of things that you have done to make sure that your business is running smoothly and running effectively and running profitably. Because the underwriters want to write good business. They want to write business that ends up making the insurance company money because you don't have a claim. It's kind of a conundrum, I know, because you buy insurance in case of a claim. The insurance company is selling you an insurance product hoping that you don't have a claim, because if you don't have a claim, it means that they get to have more profit on the deal. So when you have an agent that is your representative, that is telling your story to the underwriter, you're ending up with the best possible scenario, because your pricing and terms are going to be superior, because that agent can create competition between underwriters. So you end up with people, in an ideal situation, fighting to win your business. Instead of, when you shop in the traditional way, you have a bunch of insurance agents that don't set the pricing, that don't set the terms, that don't set the conditions, fighting over your business, and they're not the ones you want fighting. You want the underwriters fighting to win your business. And when you pick one representative to be your voice in the marketplace, that's the best way to make it happen. So what do I suggest to you for picking the right agency, the right representative? The first E is expertise. You want to work with a recognized specialist. You want to work with someone who has done this before. You really don't want to be someone's on-the-job training. Am I right? That we can all agree on that. It's fine for some things where the stakes aren't very high, but when it comes to your business and your well-being, to make sure that a claim is handled correctly and that it successfully gets paid out, you really don't want to be someone's on-the-job training. So when you work with a generalist agent who does a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit over here, what you in essence get is someone who may or may not have any significant expertise in your business vertical. They may not know the right questions to ask you. They may not know the right suggestions to make to you, so that you have an optimal balance of risk and insurance planning. So the second is effectiveness. Do they have the right relationships necessary to get the job done? Do they have the right product access? Do they have the right underwriters that they have a good rapport with? Are they able to effectively execute on their job to advise you on matters of risk and insurance planning, and then put something in front of you that is a recommendation, not a quote, a recommendation? When RiskWell works with a client, we go to the market, we pick all the things that we think are important based on what we know about a given account. We look at all the options and we pick the best option based on our professional knowledge. We then put that recommendation in front of our prospective client and say, this is what we think is best for you based on what you've shared with us. These are the other companies that we talked with that we don't think are best with you for XYZ reasons. Here are the reasons why we don't think they're best for you. And this is what we do think is best for you. Here's why. Do you have any questions? Okay, you don't have any questions? Great. Sign here, let's get your billing info, we'll get you copies of all your insurance stuff, and make sure any third parties that need copies of this have it made available to them quickly and easily. And that's the whole process. That is the easy process when you're dealing with someone who has the proper expertise and is effective. Is RiskWell the only option out there? Far from it, not even close. There are lots of great agents out there that have different specialties. There's plenty of things that we don't focus on at my firm. Lots of agents out there have very different specialties. The most important thing for you is that you are dealing with someone who has expertise that's relevant to your business, and that they're able to effectively represent you to the marketplace and get you the risk and insurance plan put together that is right for your business. Third here is endurance. You don't want to be working with someone who's relatively new to the industry. A lot of agents start off in personal insurance. They're selling personal auto and homeowners, life insurance, routine financial products. That's where it's easy to start, because the stakes are very low. And no offense to my friends that are still in personal lines insurance, it's incredibly, incredibly easy compared to commercial insurance. RiskWell sold our personal lines book of business in 2023, February of 2023. So as I record this in the summer of 2024, we are 100% focused on small business, medium-sized business, and real estate investors. That's our entire company. We only work with certain profiles of insured. And it's because of that that we're able to have significant endurance in our field. We've been in business for about 5 years now. Whoever you pick, whoever it is that you end up choosing to do business with, make sure that they have an appropriate level of endurance, because you don't want to be playing hopscotch. Ideally, you find an agency that's right for you, that has the right technology, the right staffing, the right client experience, the right relationships in the marketplace, and you stay with them for a long period of time. That is ideal for everybody, for you and for the agent you're working with. And lastly here, the fourth E is empowerment. Empowerment. A good agent is going to empower you to have confidence and peace of mind running your business, because you know that your risk management and your insurance needs are well taken care of. That's probably the most important intangible takeaway that you get when you have the right agent, or one of the right agents. Because like I said, there's no perfect insurance agent out there. Everybody is going to have different specialization, different flavor of ice cream that fits different people's taste and preferences. So there you go. Expertise, effectiveness, endurance, and empowerment. If you find someone with those 4 E's, they're probably going to be a really good fit to be your agent and representative, and make all the insurance stuff happen faster and easier. So now we're going to switch to some of the nitty-gritty stuff, some of the product level stuff, and get into policy details that are really important for every business, and then break it down into some that are more specific for blue-collar specialization, and some that are more prevalent and needed for white-collar specialization. So everybody needs the main core 5 types of insurance. Now, sometimes you may not have it be relevant for your particular business because you don't have employees, or you don't have automobiles or anything like that, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. But if those don't apply to you because of your specific business needs, so be it. That's fine. No big deal. We'll just put those off to the side until a time in the future when they do apply. Okay, so the 5 core lines of business. Line of business is just a product category. It's going to be general liability, otherwise known as business owner's policy, or BOP. Excess liability, which is commonly referred to as an umbrella or a commercial umbrella. What this is going to be is something that sits on top of the general liability. General liability or business owner's policy is going to be your core product that everybody needs. It's going to be the primary layer of coverage. The 2 components of a general liability policy are bodily injury and property damage. Bodily injury being damages caused to a human object, item, and property damage being anything that's a non-human object. So whether that's a building or vehicle or tools or equipment or inventory or whatever else. Bodily injury and property damage are the 2 main things that we're looking at here. And liability is a third-party coverage. It is covering you from financial responsibility for actions that cause damage to a third party, whether that be of accidents and injury, or disease of some kind, or something regarding property. Bodily injury and property damage are the main things that we're concerned about there. So excess liability, otherwise known as commercial umbrella, is exactly what it sounds like. It's an excess layer of coverage that sits on top of the GL policy in the event that the GL policy runs out. Coverage limits on a GL policy, general liability, typically are $1 million. And if that $1 million is exhausted, then the excess liability policy kicks in and covers beyond the GL underneath. Next is property insurance. This is going to apply to buildings. It's also going to be to contents, sometimes referred to as BPP, or business personal property. This is going to cover all of your furniture, your tables and chairs, your computers and electronics. Literally anything that is in your place of business is going to be falling under property. Also included in property is lost business income. A lot of times you'll see it on paper as BI/EE. Well, that's short for business income and extra expense. Business income is direct revenue dollars lost. I had this amount on average. My business was shut down for a claim, whether it's theft or vandalism or a fire or water break or a weather event, wind and hail, whatever it is, my business is not able to operate. I'm losing business income. Extra expense is all the soft cost associated with getting back. Sometimes it's reputation management, sometimes it's attorneys, sometimes it is unexpected expenses that fall outside of the actual revenue itself. So the EE is extra expense. You always want to make sure that your BI and EE are on paper as what's called an ALS limit, or actual loss sustained. If at all possible, you want to make sure that BI and EE on your insurance policy is written on an ALS basis, actual loss sustained. Sometimes there'll be a dollar amount associated with that. If at all possible, get ALS on your business income, otherwise you may come up short. The last two may not apply to you based on what kind of business you're running. It's workers' compensation and commercial auto. Work comp in the state of Texas technically is an optional coverage, but you have to register with the state, the Department of Workers' Compensation, which is part of the Texas Department of Insurance. If you're going to not carry work comp, then you have to register with the state as a non-subscriber. That does not absolve you of any responsibilities for providing, excuse me, got a little wordy there. That does not absolve you of any responsibilities regarding your obligation to have a safe work environment. So if you have an employee, if you have even one employee, we strongly recommend that you carry a work comp policy, because you are personally, your business is directly on the hook for all accidents, injuries, and diseases that may befall your team member while them working in the course of their job, which includes driving a vehicle to and from the office, a job site, anything during the workday. Their commute to the office, their commute home from the office, that's not considered on the job, so you're probably not going to be on the hook for their drive home after office hours, but literally everything else they do, you're going to be responsible for them. So if you choose to skip on the work comp policy, like about half of Texas small businesses do, then just be aware that you are on the hook for every dollar of medical bills and every dollar of indemnity, which is lost time from work, loss of consortium, loss of utility, any expenses that the employee receives as a part of their injury is going to be dollar for dollar your obligation with no limitation of liability. It's the scariest thing in insurance, an uncapped liability that you didn't buy insurance for, which means that you could potentially have your revenue garnished for an unknown period of time for an unknown dollar amount. It literally could be what breaks your company if something terrible happens and you didn't buy work comp insurance. And the last thing is commercial auto. We want to make sure that you are dealing with an agent that is very familiar with commercial automobile stuff. You do not want to have a business auto stuck on a personal policy. Typically, the coverage limits and the options on the policy are not nearly as robust as a commercial policy. Yes, it is more expensive. It is designed to be more expensive because the coverage is much more broad and it contemplates all of your activities as a business. So if your if your business is using a vehicle of any kind, you really want to make sure that you have a commercial auto policy, that you're not just sticking that vehicle on a personal auto policy. Now, some over here on the blue side of the fence is going to be inland marine coverage. This is for tools and equipment. We have professional liability, especially contractors' professional liability. There's environmental liability. If you're doing anything that is involving any kind of chemicals, if there's a spill, if there's chemicals that are released into the environment, if they cause any kind of damage to property or to the environment itself, there could be significant fines and penalties associated with that. If you're dealing with any kind of restoration business or contracting business or any kind of skilled work that involves materials that may be caustic or controlled in some way, you really need to have environmental liability. Next is going to be EPLI, Employment Practices Liability Insurance. This protects you as the business owner from 6 accusations, including wrongful termination, harassment, retaliation, whistleblowing type stuff, discrimination of any kind, any protected class that you can think of, whether it be race or gender or age or sexual orientation or gender identity or literally any kind of protected class that someone could argue discrimination, wrongful termination, harassment in the workplace, anything like that is going to be covered by Employment Practices Liability Insurance. And there's also third-party EPLI. If one of your employees says or does something that is alleged to be discriminatory or hateful to a customer or someone in your establishment, third-party EPLI coverage can protect you as a business from your employee or contractor running their mouth when they shouldn't. We all have heard stories about people talking when they shouldn't be talking. The next one is crime coverage. This is for both white collar and blue collar. Crime coverage protects the business from the intentional criminal acts of anyone associated with the business, an officer, an employee, a contractor of the business, etc., where the liability coverage we've already talked about covers sudden and accidental. If someone just makes a mistake and causes damages to a third party, that's one thing. But if there's an intentional criminal act, that's a different thing entirely. We have to make sure that we are covering that with an insurance that's designed to protect against intentional actions that result in damages. So then the last thing is there may be bonds that are needed for blue-collar businesses. Lots of third parties are requiring bonds these days, and that is simply a third-party promise to pay. Municipal entities, upstream contractors, lots of folks need to see bonds of some kind. Bonding is a little bit different than insurance, but typically a well-positioned commercial insurance agent can help you with all of your bonding needs, whether that's a utility bond, a performance bond, a bid bond, a surety bond for any kind of relationship that you have that's requiring some sort of promise to pay. And on the white-collar side of things, we have directors and officers coverage that protects boards and officer groups from accusations of negligence, from wrongdoing, from misappropriation of funds, etc. And I will say it is the accusation itself that triggers the coverage, not necessarily the act. So if you allege that I didn't actually do anything wrong, but you were accused of doing something wrong, the accusation itself is what triggers the coverage of the directors and officers insurance to activate. Now, this next one here, cyber liability and data breach insurance, is one of the things that I feel very, very strongly about, and I think that this is something that a lot of businesses really should have that they don't have. Cyber liability and data breach insurance should be a standalone policy, not just sold as a little tack-on feature to your business owner policy. If it's sold as an endorsement on your business owner policy or your BOP policy, the coverage probably isn't as broad as it should be, and the coverage limits probably aren't as robust as they should be. There's 7 different coverage areas that I don't have time to get into on this video, but you can check out our YouTube channel for more details about the 7 different coverage areas that need to be addressed in a properly equipped cyber liability and data breach policy. So if you're a white-collar business where you're working in the cloud, where you're working with a lot of client information in your possession, and even if you're a blue-collar business, you still definitely have a need for cyber liability and data breach coverage. Tend to be more robust needs on the white-collar side of things. The last thing I'll say here is professional liability, otherwise known as E&O. If you have a professional mistake, if you have an oopsie somewhere that causes someone damages, you're going to want to make sure that you have professional liability insurance in place. And that's about it for this video. I know there's a ton of information put in here. We started with our 12 areas of threats to be aware of. Then we talked about some of the best practices for picking an agent or agency to be your representative in the marketplace. And then we ended with some details of actual line of business type stuff that you need to be aware of as you are putting together your risk and insurance plan. If you want to talk further about this, I'm happy to assist you. My team loves working with small business owners of every size, not just startups, but also more established businesses that fall within our area of expertise. So that's all for now. I'm going to put my information over here on the side of the screen. You can call us at 469-678-8001. You can visit our website whenever you like at RiskWell.com. And if you want to email, you can go and hit us up at commercial@riskwell.com. And that's it for today. I look forward to hearing from you. If there's questions, if there's comments and feedback that you'd like to discuss further, we're happy to assist. And as always, life is risky. Business is risky. Being a startup, being a founder is risky. Risk well. Thanks, everybody.